Hello everybody, welcome back to Tabletop Republic's YouTube channel. I am Seb.K, and as promised, I have a follow-up video to my first video about White Banner and what I think you could do with the units and how good I thought the units were. But right now we're going to talk about army lists, and that's what really matters. And I've actually got a little special surprise for you as well. As we go through this, with a couple of army lists that I built, we're going to have a look at the table. And I'll do some setups on there as well, just to show you how I would use those units, how I would position those units, and what my thinking is behind the list. Because I don't really think you can make a list without showing someone what your thinking and your thought process was behind it. So that's what we're going to do. But first we're going to have a look at these lists. But before I start, I wanted to talk about the pros and cons of this faction. Because now that I've had a chance to really dig into it and go through and make 10, 20 lists and 30 lists or whatever and refine them and see what I think and how I would play with them. And it is always, my opinion, of course. There are so many ways to play this game that there isn't just one way to write lists and one way to think about them. But I just wanted to, go through my thoughts on it and how I feel about doing it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through some pros and cons of this faction now that I think after I've done some lists. Don't forget, I haven't actually put these on the table yet, but you can kind of guess. I mean, I've played 10 different Infinity armies over the last, 2.5 to 3 years. But yeah, so I've played the game a lot, and I think this is what I would do with some of these lists and how good I think these units are. So pros and cons of the faction. I think they have excellent pros first, of course. I think they have excellent fun and interesting characters to use. Obviously, characters like Kai, which is everywhere, which is fun, but also, more importantly, Jing. Jing is brilliant. Kind of reminds me a bit of Hippolyta, and compared up with the Shaolin monk, so operates in a very similar way. Only she's a specialist, so she can do more. She hasn't got eclipse grenades, but, fine. Also Adil, wherever Adil is very good. He has specialist operative as well, and obviously he's a beast in close combat and will just erase anything with that monofilament and all that martial arts. So he's cool being chain of command as well, which I'll talk about later on as well. They're really good chain of command options in this faction. Also Jing, who's great in any faction that he's in, is also particularly good here. I believe it's pronounced Xiangao, but it's a lot easier to say Ching. Where is Chingo? Anyway, yeah, there he is. So, he's really, really fun in all the factions that he's in. He's very efficient if you feel like running him as a standalone lieutenant. But even then, just putting him in fire teams, getting him up to that BS-16 is hilarious. So he's really, really good. And of course, they've got loads of other fun things that we'll talk about, but I just really like the characters. As I mentioned there as well, good chain of command options, which means you can have some nice Rambo lieutenants and other Rambo units and have fun with that and still be fairly safe. The fact that they've got things like the Dal Fei lieutenant, a really good option there, although I'm not sure I put him in my list. That might just be, you can hot swap a lot of these options in my lists for other things, so it's fine. So they've got good Rambo lieutenants, and the new remote options are just fantastic. The long I think is great. I think it's going to do a really, really good job of going over the other side of the table if you want it to with a heavy shotgun, or just staying back and being defensive, going into suppressive fire with the submachine gun. I think it's really, really good. I love that unit, actually. I can't wait to see that on the table. They have really good toolbox units. So obviously Chang'an, which we'll talk about, I mean, that unit on its own is worth almost a video in how amazingly good it is. The Yimao is fantastic. They're a little bit squishy for the points cost, considering that Armor 2 one way, there's no wind incap, no dogged, nothing like that. But they carry so many good things, so many good abilities, like the MS-1 Nemesis combo, which is always great for dealing with enemy camo markers and horrible units like that. And then they've got all these great skills, the engineer, just everything you want. In a medium infantry, and then Harry's. Just a shame they actually don't have a core option, because that would work really well. A bit like the guys from Morats, that I always forget the name of, that do the same super jumpy thing. It would be really, really good if they had that option, but they don't. But that's okay, as we'll see later on. It's really, really good. The Blue Wolf at Silhouette 6 is really fun. It's funny that every time I check Army Builder, it seems to go up by 1 silhouette value. At one point I checked it was Silhouette 5, now it's Silhouette 6. I hope it stays at 6, because that is the same size as a antipode. Not an antipode, what are they called? Actually, it might be antipode, but the Dog Warriors, the big Dog Warriors from area, and you guys know what I'm talking about. So it's not as big as a normal tag, which is great because that means it's easier to hide. And that really does make a huge difference on the table. I think one of the biggest problems with tags is their size, and on most tables they get hit from angles they didn't expect. But this guy you might be able to hide him somewhere and actually move up the table more easily, and I think that's brilliant. So he's great. And I put at the end of this pros list the Chang'e on its own. The Chang'e is incredible. Obviously, we'll talk about how good it is in links and how it fills so many decent options when you're building lists, wherever he's gone. Where's he gone? There he is. So many options, but the most important thing about this unit is the bloody jammer in the link team. And apparently you do get the burst bonus and you do get the whip bonus on that as well, which means that's a burst 2 whip 17 jammer, which goes through walls and starts people attacking your link teams. And when I show you guys on the custom table that I've got built here, where I would put this and what to do with it, this is more for newer players, by the way. I'm sure there were some vets who are going, oh, I'm sure he's going to explain some obvious stuff, but this isn't for you. This is for newer players who are getting into this faction. This might be their first faction, so I'm explaining how to use and cover with jammers. But yeah, the Chang'e, absolutely amazing. Going on to cons, the thing I noticed while I was building a lot of this was that the Lieutenant is either going to cost a lot in SWC or it's going to be extremely obvious. Like the Guilang, I quite like the Camo Lieutenant, but 2 SWC, that may be the most expensive SWC cost for a Lieutenant in the game. I think it probably is. Also, you've got a Dao Fei. I like the Dao Fei Lieutenant, but that does crop up a lot. It's probably the best option, but if you're taking that unit, which is extremely expensive, you're missing out on other stuff. But it's still a really good option with Chain of Command. Don't get me wrong. If you see Qingao on the table, he's probably a Lieutenant, unless he's in the link. Because, why would you not take advantage of that at Lieutenant level 2 when you have Chain Command? And even if you don't, it's not going to be too many other things. I mean, you're going to know that they're not going to take one of the Camo Lieutenants because they all cost 2 SWC or something silly like that. So obviously they're not going to take a Drop Troop Lieutenant because it's off the table. There's so many. So it's either going to be, Qingao if he's on the table, or it's going to be Zhanshi, standard Zhanshi Lieutenant. And you're going to see that a lot. It's going to come up a lot as it does like in JSA, where if they're not running X, they're probably running Y. It's one of those things you're going to be able to guess quite easily who the Lieutenant is, I think. Unless they're crazy and they've spent the SWC on the Guilang Lieutenant or something like that. Which, no one will see it coming. So that might happen. So after that, I've got on cons, bad or expensive aero pieces. Now, when I say bad, I don't mean that the pieces themselves are that bad. It's just what you have to do to get them is crazy. I want to talk about the Hundun. Now, when I first had a look at the Hundun unit, I wasn't sure about it at all. I thought it was very much overcosted. Still think it is a bit overcosted, but when you have a look at all the options in the faction, it becomes a little better. Mostly because of the fact that it is just a straight camo marker. So that is fine. But if you put this in the context of normal Jing or even other factions, it's not going to get picked. It's just not very good. There's going to be a million other decent ARO options other than this. But in this faction, I can see why it is there now. But it's not great. When you look at the other versions of it, I mean, you could take the Guilangs if you wanted to. You could take the multi-sniper. It's expensive again. I think it costs the same as the Hundun, but it shoots not quite as well, but it can position itself somewhere else a little bit better. Fine. So, I mean, it's an okay thing. It just, isn't going to hit anything with BS11. Same with the Kunai Solutions Ninja. It's your only TO camo model. It's your only hidden deployment model. And it's not, it's not a specialist. So you're not going to take the shock marksman rifle, which means you're just kind of left with the multi-sniper version, which, at PS11, same problem. Yes, it is completely hidden, and that is nice if you want that, but there's no good revealing something and having it either lose the face-to-face roll anyway, or just not hit a target. And then, it's revealed, and then, that's like 40 points. So that's not great. And then we talk about the heavy infantry defensive options, and they're great. They're good. They're just super expensive. Obviously, in the Shang-Chi, you've got the heavy rocket launcher. If you want it, you've got the tactical awareness, the normal version of that, which is, a fairly decent go-to option. I think I've probably put that in a couple of these lists that we'll go through, just because it is a tough piece to shift at Armour 4. It's Armour 7 in cover, really difficult to get rid of that, and it can be really annoying. The one I'd really like to take is the Jujak missile launcher, which is very similar to Tanker missile launcher in JSA, or the Zuyong missile launcher, obviously in Invincibles. Has it been 16 burst 2, Armour 6 in cover, 2 wounds, brilliant. All of that is excellent. The only problem is, if you want to take one of these, you're going to have to take a Shang-Chi core. And the Shang-Chi core, the Shang-Chi, they are still so overcosted, they're still so expensive. When you look at other units that have so much more utility than this, the only reason you end up taking them, and I think that's how they designed this faction, the only reason why you end up taking them is because you want to take one of these two options, or you want to build a core and you want to put some characters in there. You know what I mean? So just because there were the only two core options, Zanshi and the Shang-Chi. So yeah, they're not brilliant. And of course, if you spent that many points on your ARO pieces and units, everything in Infinity dies. And if you spend too many points on your ARO piece, it's one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of Yan Huos in the vanilla Jing, even though you get a burst 2 missile launcher. It's so easy to put that thing down by stacking mods and things like that, and just smoking past it. And this is the same problem with the Shang-Chi. It's too many points, I think, to put into something that's probably going to get erased anyway. So there you go. The weird thing about this faction is that I think they're a bit of a halfway house between... They kind of remind me a bit of Ikari, where they've got elements of JSA's close combat potential and some other stuff, and then they have sort of more interesting mixed fire teams, and they can shoot a bit better, but then they don't shoot as well as other factions, but they shoot better than JSA, and that's kind of where this army sits for me. They are a bit like JSA, and that is not so good, because the thing about JSA is that they have units that are so strong at what they do, like what's her name, Shinobu Kitsune and things like that, but they've got things that can go over the other side of the table and reach out and really do damage, and if you get those things off with JSA, you will just win games. And this army seems to be designed in a similar way. They've got some good close combat things. You can take stuff that's heavier, but they really limit you on what you can take. They've got so many decent close combat troops that you think, well, why, is that how I'm meant to play them? But then you haven't got anything that's good at close combat that can deliver itself across the table very easy like you do in JSA. Not everything in JSA has like smoke and stuff, but units like Shinobu and Oniwabin and ninjas and things like that, they're already up the table. So they're already where they need to be. If you want to deliver units like Lan Kai or Adil or Jing Q, even though she has smoke, you're going to have to walk up the table. It's going to be very order efficient. So it's interesting that this faction has a lot of stuff that's close combat orientated, but without giving them the tools to really consistently get them off the field to do that job. I'm actually going to talk about how I feel that this faction is meant to be played, and I think that kind of plays into that. So as a con, I'm not sure that they kind of sit halfway between the shooting game and the bit of the close combat game, but without really excelling at either one. And I would have liked to have seen more of a push in one direction or the other. They do shoot really well, though. This is still a Eugene faction. They shoot better than JSA, but I put them on sort of par with Ikari in terms of their shooting prowess and their shooting game. So after that, on the cons list, we've got convoluted link teams I put down. They are really convoluted, and if you're a new player, this is going to be really hard to understand, because there's a lot of stuff that's just like, especially the Jujaks. They're Jiwei, but they can only go in a core of Shang-Chi, but then Shang-Chi can have But Shang-Chi can be anywhere. Someone asked me the other day, if the Shang-Chi is in a core of Zanshis, can a Jujak turn up? No, they can't. But the way it's worded, I can understand why you think they could. There's so many just can join up to one, all this stuff. It is a bit of a problem. I can see it being a problem for new players. I had a problem with it. First couple of this I wrote probably wrong, just because I didn't read the text properly. So that can be, it's not a detriment to the faction on the table, but it's just something to think about. No good specialists, except, I say good specialists. What have I put down? Oh, sorry, no good specialists, no good mercenaries, except for the Ankai. I think the Ankai is good. This one's supported well. It's very cheap, so it's very. It's kind of reminds me of a Hippolyta without the smoke, without the Eclipse smoke. But he's really, really good. But other than that, there's no more mercenaries in this faction, and it would have been nice to see a couple more options like authorized bounty hunters or something like that, because they've been buffed a bit and things like that have been buffed, and they're quite a good. For covering, like Monstruck would be great in here. Something like that. So you are missing out on mercenaries in this faction a little bit. I was putting down no more hidden specialists as well. So no more, there's no things like ninjas and stuff that I mentioned earlier. And there's nothing to sit in the middle. Obviously, you've got Guilangs who are excellent. Guilang's really good, but they're not hidden deployment. They're nothing really to surprise your opponent with, other than like the ninja. But again, that's massively overcosted and not that good. I also put down lots of bloat on some of these profiles. There's a lot of stuff on these profiles, that, especially with the Shang-Chi and the Jujak I look at, because it looks like they've been given stuff, even though they are better, straight up better than Zuyongs. In a pinch, if you took one Zuyong, you'd probably just take a Jujak instead. But then why would you take just one Zuyong? You probably wouldn't. For this points cost, say on the Jujak, you could take characters and things like that. They're going to have, especially with characters in this faction that have specialist abilities and things that are covering multiple angles and multiple things they're doing on the table. You just wouldn't take just one of these guys. And the Shang-Chi suffer from that massively because they're only a little bit better than the Jujaks. They've got stats they don't need. I mean, you've got CC18, excellent, but with a shock CCW, that's cool. But why would you prioritize getting a Shang-Chi in combat? It's just not one of those things that's needed on the stat line. And I feel like these points and these stats have been increased in places just to make them different from other heavy infantry units that are already in the faction. But they just don't do enough for their points cost at that point. Especially with all the characters that you've got. If you're just taking one of these, if it wasn't for the linkable options on the Shang-Chi, you'd probably never see one. I mean, just look at the HMG here, and compare that to Qingao. Same ballistic skill, same armor value, but you get the fatality on top. It's basically the same. He's cheaper, in fact. So there's often, very little reason to take one of those outside of the core, which I think is probably why they gave it to them. There's a lot of units, like even the Yimao. I love the Yimao, and their utility on the table is amazing, but they're still very expensive for a unit that's, there's only one wound armor 2, but still, they're quite squishy for something at that points cost. I mean, they're as much as a lot of Zuyongs, things like that. If it wasn't for the linkable options and some of the other stuff, they wouldn't be that great. So, just some bloat here and there. Even on some of the characters, I still think Lei Gong, even though it's great to have Chain of Command, it's still not good enough. It doesn't do enough jobs. If you take that Chain of Command option, and if you can afford it, you should probably just spring for a deal. Because he's another 7 points, and you get, all this stuff, get sensors, martial arts, better range gun, that sort of thing. Anyway, bloat. Okay, so I put down at the end of this little list, it's too early to really see how good they are. Yeah, that's true, it is. I have no idea how good they are, and I'm definitely going to be playing some games and relaying my thoughts back to you guys after I've played some games on Tabletop Simulator right now, because we're all stuck in doors, but still, it works, it's good. before we talk anymore, we should probably have a look at the lists on the table. So I'm going to move over to the table plan and just show you guys what I think you should be doing with the setup on these. Actually, before we start that, I'm just going to go through this quick list that I've written here, which is the first one you're going to see on the table. The other ones I've written, I'm not going to go through the table plan because it's going to take a while. But for this one, this is just for people to see like a basic list of stuff that I think as a new player, if you want to get into this faction, you should definitely try out. It has a lot of the different unit types and characters and stuff and that are interesting and things you should definitely get used to using. So before we go to the table, I'll just quickly tell you my thoughts on this. Jing is going to be your main attacking piece, probably your main alpha striking piece if you can get a good run. She's the kind of unit that you can just throw a bunch of orders into and get up the table. Obviously, you might have to clear things out first. So this may be a second or third turn sort of run if you can't get the run through. But if you should definitely make a run with this girl and just do as much damage as you can. Get in the back line and just crush. I mean, that similarity to Hippolyta in the way that Hippolyta plays as well is similar kind of thing. If Hippolyta gets a run, she'll kill 5 or 6 models. And she may not even die on the next turn. I've had her run through Geon Link teams, and this model will do the same job. Obviously, without the Eclipse Smoke, you're going to have to be careful. So there's other things in this list that I will explain that will help you deal a bit better with enemy ARO pieces and things like that. And obviously you've got the Shaolin with her. The Zanshi core. So this is, of course, the 5-man core. You're taking the missile launcher because your other decent aero pieces are so much more expensive than this. And I'm of the JSA philosophy here, where if you've got a missile launcher that's that cheap, you probably should take it. And in the 5-man link team, that's a burst 2 BS-14 missile launcher. Sometimes that will just kill the thing that's trying to shoot it. And if it isn't, it's a piece that they have to deal with. And if you lose it, it's 16 points. Obviously, the combi rifle hacking device, because you've got some remotes here that might need hacking, so it's a good thing to include that. Be careful when you use it, of course, but I'll go through that in a minute. Zanshi Lieutenant, it's an obvious lieutenant, but as I'll show you on the table, we're going to have it backed up, and it is going to be covered, and hopefully not too hard to get to. At whip 13, that lieutenant is one of the better ones, actually. I believe it's either 13 or 14 in this faction. So this time we're going for the whip 13. The Chang'e, incredible. Obviously the jammers, you get the bonus because it's a 5-man core, and that unit's protecting everyone in the core. And then what happens is, if you need to attack, you'll notice that there are 2 Yimao here, not 3. But the Chang'e can join up with the Yimao. So what happens is, once they kill your missile launcher, and they probably will, because if they don't, they probably die to it, which is great. But even then, you can break this up into a 4-man, or missile launcher dies. These guys sort of out on their own, and these 3 link up as a Harry's team, and then you're attacking with the AP Spitfire. Ruishi, because you should definitely have Ruishi, because Ruishis are great. The engineer and the Yimao, this is down to positioning, but it's great to be able to have an engineer and a decent attacking piece in the Yimao, because all it's going to do is run up past the Ruishi and help pick it up if anything happens to it. We've got a second group here, which is order fuels for your Guilang. The Guilang's job is to go out and do objectives and things like that. Another Shaolin, because why not? Really to help support the Ruishi. It also means that the Ruishi doesn't have to be near Jing Q to get the smoke, so that's cool. The Hundun heavy rocket launcher, which is, again, in the other factions maybe not, but here, at least it's a piece that starts in camo, and I'm going to show you on the table, what we're going to do with that and try and do trickery and thing. It probably, there's not too many tricks you can pull, but I'll show you what I've got. Flash Pulse Block, because it's a nice cheap order, and the Long Yakas, why not? And it's a backup attacking piece. If you really need to go and hit them with a heavy shotgun, you've got some orders here to do it, but you can also put this in Group 1 if things go really badly, or after your missile launch dies, and you've got another attacking piece with a bunch of orders in Group 1 to go out and kill things with, which is really cool. So let's go over to the table, and I'll show you the setup for this. So this is a cool table that we've got that was designed by somebody online, and I can't for the life of me find out. So if anybody knows who designed this, I believe it's a 3D setup for some terrain that they planned on making. But it's going to work really well for our purposes here because it's just an idea, right, of the kind of positioning I would do. This is just a random table. Every table is different. It's just to show you guys, give you guys an idea of what you should or could be doing with these units. Because as I said before, not one thing is right in this game. So I'm going to pop in the core here. So this is the Zanshi core. So this is all the Zanshis and the Qiangao unit. Okay, so all the Zanshis here. We've got missile here. Obviously, the missile can see all the way across the table. Let's have a look. So that one's got view all the way across the table. It can go either way. It can, if I wanted to, you could just shove it here and there, and you can see basically either side of the table. Obviously, in most games, you're probably not going to get a piece of terrain like this. This table actually has some on both sides and a horrible sniper tower up here. But anyway, this is just saying that you want to be covering a lot of the table with your missile launcher. You want it to be an annoying piece that they have to go through. If you isolate it on one side of the table, you might not get first turn. If you isolate it on one side of the table or the other, they can easily avoid it or hide from it until they're ready to deal with it. You don't want that. You want them to have to deal with this missile launcher and to stack it with other arrows. You've got a hacker back here. Obviously, this is going to be the lieutenant, one of these two. They're just hiding at the back because that's what they do. That's what you need to do with them. The hacker's going to be the hacker could be basically anywhere, but I'll show you why that's the case in a minute. Basically, you just want to keep these guys together to get the burst bonus. Obviously, we've got the Qiangao here, who has got the jammer field. That's the range of the jammer, so that's covering the entire link team. If anyone wants to come down this side of the table, they're going to have to walk into the jammer field. If they want to come in this way, let's change the colour of that. Actually, that's horrible. Let's go with red. Okay, so if anyone wants to come in here, they're going to have to deal with the jammer, but we're going to have stuff around here anyway, so don't worry about that. Okay, so moving on, we've got the Ruishi position here. I'm going to put the Shaolin next to it. So this is what you want to do with these two. Is the Ruishi is set up so that it can go. I mean, we're going to have other stuff over here, so don't worry about that yet. The Ruishi is looking at this side of the table and being like, right, is there anyone going to be here? Is there anyone going to be here or here? And deciding whether it wants to go this way or go this way. What's going to happen with this Shaolin is that it's going to either use its impetuous move to go here, because it has to, because it's extremely impetuous, or it's going to be this way. And what you're hoping is that when it gets to this corner, nothing can see it, and when it gets to here, nothing can see it. Hopefully, if you position it right, this is only going to be 4 inches, right? This section here. So let's go back on this one. And then what it will do is it will come around the corner and it will throw smoke for the Ruishi, and the Ruishi will be able to shoot through that. Okay, so that's what you want to do with that, and that's just picking target of opportunity. And if they want to, they can link up here and here, with the Shaolin protecting the Ruishi as it comes around, and the Ruishi standing here, ready to go out and attack later on in later turns. Right, what have we got next? Let's change the size of that as well. Okay, cool. Let's move that down. Right. Okay, so we've got a couple of email here. So I've put the icons next to them so you can see which one is which. The email here is ready to repair the Ruishi in case it doesn't do that well in a firefight, which does happen. Ruishi is a great unit. Shooting through smoke, the mods are stacked in your favour, but it doesn't always work out. So you've got a email here who actually has quite a bit of cover here if they try and shoot through, and it wants to move in and do its repair game, right? So that's pretty good. Other than that, though, it's not these two. I mean, this is the regular email. These two, that's the Spitfire email, actually, that one. So that's got a nice angle to come out here and start attacking across the table either way it wants to. These guys are nearby the Qiangao. So when this model dies, Qiangao gets to move across and then move its jammer up the field, which is really, really, really good. And obviously with them covering them, look at the area that's going to cover as they're moving up its field. It's going to be a huge area that jammer's going to cover. And I do expect the missile launcher to die, but you always play around that because in a game where it hasn't died, I generally have won. So, because it's such an easy model to kill that if they haven't got the guns to kill that, then they're going to be in big trouble. So, there you go. Next unit down, we got the Yao Fang. So the Yao Fang comes with a mine, and these three really need to be looked at together. So I'm going to put the mine down here. The mine's going to be here, and it's going to be camo. And why is that? Because the Hoondoon is here. So there's two units here that are both camo. The enemy won't know what they are. They'll know what this one is because the Yao Fang, is a rather big remote, and it's going to have a big camo marker. So they'll know exactly what it is, especially if they've had a quick glance at your army list. So, not your army list, White Banner on Infinity Army. So, yeah, but you've got this here, and it kind of works as a little bit of a decoy for your Hoondoon unit, so that they don't know which one it is. And that gives you the maximum amount of time to make them guess and to decide where to come out and discover the Hoondoon or this one or whatever, because that's what you want to do with these guys. You want to make sure that your enemy is spending as many orders as they possibly can dealing with your ARO pieces. That's what they're for. They're really there to eat up time over anything else, and orders, right? So having these two camo markers up here, it just gives them more of a guessing game to play and just slows things down for them and stops you getting attacked or too badly attacked. So that's what you want, so that you could come out and counterattack with some of these good units. So we've got, and then your Yao Fang, obviously, this has got great position to go out here and here. If you want to hack the Yao Fang, the Guilang is going to be right next to it. So this is going to be another camo marker here. Don't forget it has deployable repeaters. So if you really want to hack this model and have it go on a rampage or use its Panzerfaust to take on targets here and here, you can do that. So this thing can drop a deployable repeater right here, and then you've got this as your hacking area. And then your hacker doesn't have to go anywhere. He can just stay right where he is in safety, and you've got another range. Obviously, the Ruishi is a repeater as well. So if it just so happens, you can run the Ruishi across the table over here if it just happens that you want to attack something over here. And you might want to do that because there's actually going to be smoke here, which we'll see in a minute. Next units up, obviously Guilang, just before I go on, is going to be able to move out and deal with objectives and things, and that's what his job is. And also put down mines to make this area of the table a little bit harder to deal with. So we've got Jing. This is where she's going to be. So this is great because, as far as I can tell, it's difficult without getting down on a table like this, but you can't from this angle, obviously. So as far as I can tell, this model shouldn't be seen, right? And it's going to defend Jing from anything coming over this way. If they try and drop in behind, obviously there's crossfire here. The missile launcher can see down. Jing can probably see this way. So if anyone tries to drop in here to come up behind Jing, she's probably going to turn around. And if she doesn't, other things will cover it. And the Shaolin, if you're smart with your positioning as well, might be able to catch that angle, just stop something here. Obviously, that's going to be a camo marker here, the Guilang, so that can stop people coming through this gap. And then Jing can just use the smoke from the Shaolin to move up the table and just destroy things as she goes, using the smoke cover. She has climbing class, so things like this is just not a problem. She moves over here, she can come in and just attack all the way down the back line, and that's horrible, horrible, horrible. That's what you want to do. You want to try and get lines down the back, places that are just going to be horrible for them to deal with. Just find the gaps, really. Last but not least, we've got Chai Yao Kong. This is just up here, and it's only there to stack arrows with other things, so that if they're attacking you, you always want to stack the arrows in this game because more dice is better. So if they're attacking you here and here, it's got lines of sight this way, along with your Hoondoon and your missile launcher, and they're all looking this way, and that's what you want. You don't want people can slice the pie, but you want them to have to do that. You want them to spend more orders because that's what the point of arrow pieces really is at the end of the day. So there you go. So that's what I would do on the table with this, and we've got a variation of this list coming up, and I'm going to quickly go through it because it's got a couple more units, and it's just to show you what I would do. So after you've done, you've tried this list out or a similar list. you can go on something like this and just try something else out. So let's just plug the units back in. And I believe we've got everything up to... we've got GQ, we've got that, we've got mines, yeah, there it is. Another Handoon. And that's it. So this is another list. So this is a different variation and a different positioning. So we've got a Shaolin, Jing and a Lan Kai, and I think these guys are best friends, but I don't think you should link up the Lan Kai with Jing because they don't really have... well, Jing needs the smoke. They both need the smoke. And if you're just using regular Shaolins like this one to throw the smoke, obviously they're a bit of a liability because they're extremely impetuous. You don't want to be spending orders on them to restrain them. So the Shaolin in the link with Jing is great because they're not impetuous anymore, and then they can throw smoke regularly. And then, of course, Lan Kai can link up with them. Not link up with them, but was able to use the smoke that they provided to move up with them as well. And then, of course, you can put both of them into the middle of the table, and that's really good. Once they get into the middle of the table, it's very similar to like playing Miyamoto Musashi or any of those other characters that are really hard to deal with in close range. These guys are going to be brilliant in close range for holding the middle of the table. And then once they've moved up, they can either attack this way, coming in from the side like that, or they can attack using smoke and just go head on and start dealing with units through smoke. Obviously, you're going to have to deal with enemy ARO pieces, but you always have to do that. And what you should do is use a coordinated shoot wherever you can to deal with things like that, which I'll explain in a minute, as how you would do. In fact, when I go through another one on this, I'll explain how that works in a minute as well. Yeah, you've got Rushi, similar angle to the last one. You've got, I believe, is that the HMG? Is that the HMG? Yes, I think that is the HMG. So that's the HMG bot. I can never remember what the symbol is for that one. Is that Chai? Oh no, it's Chai. Cool. So we've got the Flash Pulse port where it was before. We've got the Rishi where it was before, just ready to go out and attack things. I don't believe we've got an engineer here. Yeah. So yeah, similar theories. Obviously, that's going to come out and deal with that, and the Rishi's going to attack from this angle. The engineer is going to be able to come out and deal with it. You've got a link team here, supported in the same way as before, and you've got the Yao Fang there. Only its mine is there to cover this angle here. The Guilang is there using its forward deployment a little bit better, and its infiltration, just to get a bit further up the table and to stop people coming down here and coming down here. Let's get rid of all those lines. And the cool thing about this list is that you've also got Qingao. And Qingao is going to be here. He's this symbol here. And what happens with him is that once the missile launcher dies, which it will, because you almost want it to, and hopefully taking as many orders as it can with it, once the missile launcher dies, he comes up, links up with these guys, and gets that insane burst bonus. Once he gets the burst bonus and the ballistic skill bonus, he goes up to ballistic skill 16, and then you're hitting 5 dice on 16s with damage 16. That is really, really good and will deal with most things. So this list is a little bit less flexible than the other one, but it has a much bigger gun in the back line. So there you go. That's how you would sort of do a variation on the other list. Let's go back to Infinity Army so that we can have a look at some more lists that I've written. To finish this off, that are going to get steadily more, well, a little bit more varied, a little bit more advanced. So bear with me here. Okay, so going back to Infinity Army, let's have a look. So the first one that we've got here is characters in Flash Pulse defense. So there is a cool thing you can do. You can do it in most factions. I just really like it in this faction. I think it supports their playstyle quite well. As I said before, they don't really have any world-beating, horrible destroyer ARO pieces, but they do have a lot of really annoying ones, and you can dial that annoyance up to 11 quite quickly with a list like this. So what you do here is that we've got Jing Q and the Shaolin. They're attacking, of course. You've got Rishi, which is brilliant, but you've got the Yaopu Pangolin, and a lot of people don't like Evo remotes in this game, but they do have their uses, especially in a list like this. So what the Evo is going to do is it's going to start the game with enhanced reaction. It's either enhanced reaction or Overclock's the one. It's with Overclock active at the beginning of the game. And what that's going to do is bump the Ruishi and both these Chai Yaokongs up to burst 2 flash pulses. And that is stupidly annoying, especially when you've got Hushong Yaokong, TR Bot also watching the table, and the Zhanshi missile launcher. So that is a lot of stuff that's multiple bursts coming at them. Nasty stuff to deal with. That many AROs, especially if they're decently stacked. I mean, what I'd love to do is to be able to put the Zhanshi, who is taller than all of these remotes, well, apart from the Ruishi, taller than all of these remotes at the back here, and put it behind one of these guys so that you've got the Zhanshi's burst 2 missile, and then either 4 dice from the HMG, 2 dice from the Flash Pulse, whatever. You want the Zhanshi to win face-to-face rolls, so it not being in cover behind one of those remotes doesn't really matter. Trust me, it would die whether it was in cover or not, one wound number one, but what you want it to do is have a higher chance of winning or stopping your opponent from moving. So I would put a missile launcher behind the HMG or the Flash Roll spot to make sure one of them gets hits through or wins the face-to-face roll, just to slow things down as much as possible. After that, we've got a 5-man link here. So we've got Qinggao, Tiangao, oh, I love these names, Lei Gong, Zhanshi, and the missile Yap. So obviously you want that 5-man bonus, so that's how you're going to get it. Qinggao, for going first, can move out with the HMG at burst 5 BS16, of course. You've got the double jammers there. Lei Gong for the chain of command, which is something you're going to need if you're running a level 2 lieutenant. Obviously, these are brilliant because it's one core. We're not worrying about Harry's and things like that. All of these characters can be part of a Zhanshi core. So as long as one of these 2 Zhanshis are alive, you're still able to core these guys up. So what you could do is keep this guy, after the missile launch dies, of course. You've got the boarding shotgun, the submachine gun, and the combi rifle. They form up as a 3-man core, which is something you can do. I know some beginner players are like, can you, do you have to do 5? No, you don't. So you can do all of these guys in a 3-man core, and then Qinggao gets to go out and uses 2 lieutenant orders. If you really need the burst bonus, you can keep them in there, but remember that you could always break out of the fire team, use both lieutenant orders to fire at something twice for free, effectively, and then put him back in the link team. So that would only actually cost you 1, if he's already part of the link team, that would only cost you 1 command token. So bear that in mind, because that's going to be pretty nasty if that thing just won't die. You've got 2 free orders to kill it. So that's pretty good. Obviously, we've got mech engineering Yao Zhao. We are running a ton of remotes. So, you're going to want to bring some of them back. You're going to need to repair this HMG if you want a strong aero piece, things like that. Obviously, if you're looking at this, we haven't got a lot of specialists. I mean, we do, but they're not forward, deploying or anything. Technically, Lei Gong is a specialist because he has chain of command and a lot of missions. That is one. Technically, the Evo is a specialist, but it's going to be the back of the table being protected if it can. So not super useful, but it is a thing that can be moved out with coordinated orders and stuff. Jing Q is a specialist, and that's going to be one of the main ones you're going to move out on the table with. So the main 2 you're going to try and do objective is it's going to be Lei Gong, it's going to be Jing Q. I know it's not, and obviously you've got the engineer and the Yao Zhao. If you're allowed to use the Yao Zhao, you can use that. But obviously it's not going to be the most effective, specialist objective grabbing list. But you can. It depends on the mission you're playing, and I quite like this idea of just running a whole bunch of really nasty multi-dice defensive stuff. You could also, they're going to spend so many orders trying to deal with a lot of this, or at least hopefully, unless they roll really, really well, and don't lose a single ARO, face-to-face roll. They're going to take a lot of this, and then basically what's going to happen is they're going to either overextend and move into the middle of the table, and then you're going to be able to pounce on them with Jing Q, which is one of the best things about Jing Q and the Ruishi and stuff like that. Or they're going to lose a few pieces in the attempt, and either way, it's great. So even though not the strongest objective grabbing list, but a fun one, and it would be fun to see all of those flashball spots and all that stuff link up. The other reason why you could do that in a lot of factions, the reason why I like doing it in this faction is also this second group is insanely good at doing coordinated shoot. And the coordinated shoot is a thing that a lot of new players, and even, in fact, I don't think anyone's ever done it on me. Not once. And I played a lot of experienced players and stuff, but it really is the best way of dealing with an enemy ARO piece. Because what happens in a coordinated shoot is that these 4 units all fire at the same target, but they can only ARO 1, and you cannot split burst an ARO. So their Kamal sniper in a link team, 5-man link team with its super ballistic skill and its mimetism and stuff, is being fired at by, it can either eat 2 rounds, because you make this the spearhead, it gets half burst. You eat 2 rounds from the HMG. This is after assisted fire, of course, so you can always buff one of these. We have 2 rounds from the HMG, 1 Panzerfaust round from the Longyaw, or 2 flash pulses. And it has to pick one of these. So it's, even though you're not going to be hitting on great numbers, you've still got 3 dice, and all you need is for one of these to go through. If any one of these causes a wound or fails a save, you've effectively eliminated that ARO piece. Because if it gets flash pulse, then it's stunned, which is fine, because you've achieved your objective. You've gotten rid of that ARO piece for this turn, which allows you to move up and take advantage of that positioning, hopefully deal with it with something else and smack it. But if it takes a wound, of course, from any of these, then it's dead. And that's what you wanted as well. So coordinate shoot, very, very useful. Next list, I think it's the blue. Yep, this is the blue wolf list. So this is what I would do. This is very basic, by the way. This is not something that I've really had a lot of time to think about, but this is what a blue wolf list would look like for me. There are so many ways to build this, and I tried a bunch of them, but there was a lot of fire team hopping in my other lists, and I wanted to keep it fairly simple. So in this list, you've got a blue wolf, obviously. You've got Jing as your lieutenant, because the whip 14, and you're going to want high whip, and you're going to want order efficiency, because you've spent a lot of points on these guys. So as I said before, this guy can pop out of a fire team, fire twice for free. Or he can run out on his own. So again, you've got a similar setup as we did before, where you've got a 5-man to begin with. You've got a paramedic here, just in case, because if you're running limited insertion, which this is 10 orders, I couldn't fit a doctor in here, so paramedic's the next best thing. A, for doing classified objectives, maybe, and also for just if you pick up something like Qingao after he's gone down, or Adil, or even the missile launcher, if you manage to pull that off, it's going to make a huge difference to your game. So being able to do that, even with a paramedic, is still something that you might want to take a chance at. And it's a specialist. It's another specialist, although we're not short on them here. We've got Qingao, obviously Adil with his chain of command is a specialist, and so is the paramedic. Obviously, this 5-man link team is very strong. They can move anywhere on the table. They're being protected by this jammer. They can all attack really well. Obviously, once this goes down, you can then split Qingao off if you want the efficiency, or you can keep them as a 4-man team moving up with these guys, or you can split them off so that these 3, with the paramedic here, are all in a core, another 3-man core. So that works really well. You've got a Guilang, obviously, because specialists, you need those. And he's a very good one. Also, though, if you felt like it, you could use sort of a decoy tactic where he's at the back line too, where you're moving your whole army up together, because sometimes when you put a Guilang out in the middle of the table, they just get killed. Of course they do, because they're all isolated, camo or not. It's not going to save you from someone just coming around the corner and dealing with you. So sometimes it's best to support him with your army as well. You've got the Hundun, because you're short on aero pieces. The blue wolf is, not really going to do that for you. It is an excellent unit at that silhouette value, by the way. If it was any bigger, I'm not sure I would like it as much, but it's an excellent unit, and it doesn't do the aero game that well. So you still need something like a Hundun heavy rocket for the reasons I mentioned earlier. It just slows them down. You can play the camo game, which is basically that you're up in the building, and of course they come out and they wait to see what you do, and then you don't do anything, and then they go, okay, maybe it's not a unit, maybe it's a mine, which is why you might want to put up the Guilang next to it so that they think one of them is a mine, and then they move out. And either you don't reveal again, so let's wait for them to get into a better position, or they try and discover you, which way's an order, and if they don't, they move, and then you, on the next turn, you just shoot them with a heavy rocket launcher when they're out of position. So yeah, the Hoondoon is okay. I'm still not sure, but I think it's going to be right. It's going to be right. The mech engineer, because you need an engineer. You're running the Blue Wolf. You're going to need time to pick it up. It's not the hardest thing to get this out with a coordinated order and just move it up the table, moving a Guilang as well if you have to, or other units. Oh yes, also forgot about one thing as well. The Blue Wolf does have fireteam duo, which means that Jingao, the Tiangao, and Adil can all join up with it. So depending on what happens to you in your game or how you feel like starting your game, you can always move those around and do that. So that was a random little Blue Wolf list. Obviously, you can move things around and change units around. You can make a deal a little bit cheaper by going for Lei Gong, but I really do think you should have a chain of command option in there somewhere. I wish the Blue Wolf could have a lieutenant option. That would have been great, because then that would have meant that, it really doesn't do that. No, that would have meant that you could do that and then run chain of command. You can put another gun in, maybe save some points there, maybe put in a drop troop or something. That would have been good. But there you go. And then we've got one more list that I want to go through. So, this is a camo spam. This is something you can do with this army that is quite fun. I think would be really hilarious. I'm not sure how, effective it would be, but it would be a lot of fun to run. So you have a couple of long yas there. That's 4 camo markers already, because they're both putting down mines. They're both camo to start with. You've got a Guilang mine layer, so that's 2 more, so that's 6 camo markers. All of these are either forward deploying or up to infiltration length. Guilang forward observer, you've got that in there as well. That's 7 camo markers. The Hoondoon, that's 8 camo markers. And the Daofei Lieutenant, hidden amongst all of these crazy camo markers, which is a horrible thing to get surprised by, is your 9th camo marker. And the Daofei Lieutenant is excellent. Whip 14 is brilliant. I haven't actually included, I was going to include a Tiger Soldier, which I forgot to talk about, because Tiger Soldiers are amazing. I just don't feel like I need to say a huge amount, because Yujing, they've had it forever. It's just excellent. And obviously in any of these lists that I put down, you can just swap things around. You can put this and that in there, however you prefer to run. But anyway, I digress. So Shang-Chi, you've got tactical awareness there because you want order efficiency, because the only things that are actually going to start on the table. This Shang-Chi, who is now in a Shang-Chi core, of course. The Lei Gong, who is your chain of command, because obviously you want your Daofei to attack, and he'll probably die eventually, so you need something to back that up. Shang-Chi obviously is a burst 3 heavy rocket launcher, does a lot of damage. Pretty good. BS-13, it's alright. I mean, the way with templates work, and by the way, if you're new, you should really go look and read how templates work, because a lot of new players who've been playing it for like a year in my local group still didn't understand how templates worked until very recently, so you should definitely go look that up. But yes, if you realize how templates work, you see how a burst 3 heavy rocket launcher, no matter who's got it, is still a very, very good gun. Lei Gong, obviously, that's another specialist there. With chain of command mostly is a specialist. Obviously, the Chang'ao covers the ranges that the other ones don't, so we've got super short range there. It's got grenades, which is fun, and the jammer covers them. And this unit is kind of interesting. So there is another version of this list that you can run that has a lot of hackers in it. So I challenge you guys to go go hacking crazy and see if you can put in a Yimao Harry's here instead, with hackers and killer hackers, and then have assault hackers here, and then an Evo repeater for doing coordinated hacks and stuff. But for this one, I've put this in because he's a great defensive unit. And this is the Tangao second section, which you probably won't see that often. Mostly because Hollow Echo with Mad Traps is just a pain. Because as far as I know, the Hollow Echo repeats the Mad Traps as well, all the equipment that unit carries. So, and it says Mad Traps, so I can assume there's 2 of them, which means that, that's 6 Mad Traps and 3 of this guy that you've got to find either tokens for or whatever. So yeah, you don't have to deploy with a Hollow Echo State, but if you can be bothered, he's really, really good for just annoying your opponent. You've got all this camo spam, and then you've got these 3 hollows and the 6 mad traps out on the table. And, it's just horrible. It'd be hilarious, but it was more to add to the joke. And of course, he's another specialist, and he defends your 3-man team very, very well. I'm not saying this is going to be tournament viable or anything, but none of my lists really are, because you never know what you're going to come up against, and Infinity is about more than just being tournament viable, in my opinion. I think it's fun. So there you go. So those are my thoughts on a more in-depth look, anyway, at White Banner. I didn't really talk about general strategy, but for me, I feel like White Banner are very good in the midfield, and I think they're very good at counter-attacking, right? So what I'm going to try and do with them is draw my enemy down the fire lanes that I want them to be in, and the places that I want them to be, so I can pounce on them. I've written a lot more lists, so I might include a few more lists in the description with the army codes, or at least somewhere where you can go get them, so that you can have a look at all the things that I've done, brainstorming and whatever. Obviously, this army's only been out for a week, probably not even a week, so I'm sure there are incredible things that you guys can come up with. So if you do come up with anything, please let me know, put it in the comments. That'd be great, I'd like to hear it. Also, if I make any mistakes, please let me know, because Infinity is a tough game to learn. I've been playing it for a couple of years, but still, it's a very hard game, and we still get things wrong, and we still misread things. Like I misread the difference between the veteran unit moniker and the veteran level 1 skill, which I've been playing wrong for about 3 months, so that was embarrassing. Thinking that all characters were veteran level 1s, but anyway, totally didn't do that. So yeah, Infinity is a tough game, and even for people who've been playing it for a while, you still make mistakes. So please let me know if I did make any mistakes. And as always, my name is Seb.K. Thank you for watching. This is Tabletop Republic's YouTube channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.